Okay, so let's talk about the media. It's this strange world that feels both absolutely infinite and, at the same time, kind of narrow, right? We're going to break down how we got here, what the internet really changed, and who's actually pulling the strings on the stuff you see every single day.
You know that feeling, don't you? You're scrolling through this endless sea of content, and yet it feels impossible to find something that's genuinely new or different? Well, I'm here to tell you that feeling is not just in your head. It's actually a direct result of how the entire media landscape has been totally transformed. And today, we're going to unpack exactly why that is.
All right, so before we dive any deeper, let's just get on the same page. When we say media, we're not just talking about the news. We mean all of it. Any channel of mass communication, from newspapers and TV to websites and social media. Basically, if it connects one creator to a huge audience, we're calling it media.
To really get where we are now, we have to look at where we came from. So let's rewind the clock to what we now call old media. This was the world of newspapers physically landing on your doorstep, radio shows you had to catch at a certain time, and, maybe 3 or 4 TV channels that pretty much everyone was watching.
Back then, things worked in a really specific way. Communication was basically a one-way street. It flowed from some big producer down to you, the consumer. And that was it. It was impersonal. The people making the content had no idea who you were, and you had almost no way to talk back. Everyone got the exact same message at the exact same time.
And then, everything changed. The rise of computers and the internet didn't just add another channel to the mix, it completely ripped up the rulebook. This was the beginning of the new media revolution.
And this slide right here, it just nails the single biggest change. We went from a one-to-many model, one TV station broadcasting out to millions of people, to a many-to-many model. All of a sudden, anyone with a dial-up connection could be a creator, a publisher, a broadcaster. Communication stopped being a lecture and turned into this massive, chaotic, and pretty amazing global conversation.
The sheer scale of this change is it's hard to wrap your head around. But let's try to put it in perspective. Back in August 1995, the entire World Wide Web had just under 20,000 websites total. Think about that. That's a small enough number you could probably visit most of them.
And then, this happened. By February 2018, that number had exploded to over 1.8 billion websites. That's not just growth, that's a whole new digital universe being built in just a little over 2 decades. It's staggering. So with billions of websites and everyone able to be a creator, that means the power is totally in the hands of the people now, right? Well, it's a little more complicated than that. Let's pull back the curtain and take a look at the powerful forces that are still shaping this whole new landscape.
So the first big force at play is something called concentration of ownership. This is a trend where fewer and fewer giant corporations and very powerful individuals are owning more and more of the media we consume. So while it might look like there are thousands of different brands and channels, a whole lot of them trace back to the same handful of parent companies.
And this whole idea of concentration leads us right back to that feeling we started with, right? 500 channels and nothing on. As the researcher Robert McChesney pointed out years ago, this creates the illusion of choice. You see hundreds of options, but if they're all owned by the same few companies, the content starts to feel, well, the same. It's often repetitive and designed to be as safe as possible.
And tied into that is another trend, conglomeration. This is when one massive company doesn't just buy up its competitors in one field, but spreads out, buying up companies across different types of media. Suddenly, they own the movie studio, the book publisher, the news channel, and the streaming service.
I mean, look no further than Amazon. It started as an online bookstore. Then it moved into publishing books itself. Then it built its own film and TV studio. And finally, it became a massive global distributor of that media. Now, why does that matter? Because one company now controls the entire pipeline, from an idea in a writer's head all the way to the screen in your hand. That's immense influence.
And of course, the technology that makes all of this possible, the engine driving these changes, is digitalisation. It's just a fancy word for turning everything, music on a record, photos on film, words in a newspaper, from a physical thing into a digital file, into ones and zeros. That's what lets us stream, share, and remix everything instantly. Okay, so we've got this incredible, revolutionary technology, but it's being shaped by these massive corporate forces of concentration and conglomeration. So what's the big takeaway? What does all this actually mean for us, for our daily lives? Let's talk about how our media habits have completely changed.
With the internet, streaming, and social media taking over, it's really tempting to just say, yep, old media is dead and buried. But if you actually look closer, the real story is way more interesting.
Old media didn't die. Not at all. It just adapted. It converged with the new tech. Newspapers built huge online presences and now reach readers all over the world. Radio evolved into podcasts that you can listen to whenever you want. And TV? It totally embraced streaming and on-demand services, finding a brand new life on the very screens that were supposed to replace it.
And here's the really big deal. One of the biggest changes isn't just the content, it's how we consume it. The audience is now completely fragmented. You know that old image of the whole family gathered around one TV to watch a show at 8 p.m. on a Tuesday? That's almost gone. Now we each live in our own little media bubble, watching what we want, when we want, on our own separate screens.
And all of this brings us to one final, really important question. The technology in your hand is definitely new. The apps and platforms you use are new. But as we've seen, many of the powerful gatekeepers, the ones who decide what stories get told and what you get to see, well, a lot of them are the same ones who've been in charge for decades. So the next time you're scrolling that endless feed, it's worth asking yourself, how much of that choice is truly mine?